Hi, I know you've just watched a video about common denominators and how to find common denominators, which is fine, but I just wanted to show you a different way of doing it rather than having to find the lowest common multiples all the time. Okay? Now, if we look at the example that you've just seen, the first example that was on that video, he was trying to look at 2/5 and 7/8. And I say, the video, I mean, basically we're looking at comparing fractions, but common denominators, I think I've said in the post, but common denominators are an essential thing when you're adding or subtracting numbers as well. So it's not just a matter of trying to order them and compare them. It's you have to do this when you're adding fractions or subtracting fractions. Okay, so the way it talked about it in the book, in the last video, it said we've got 5 here and 8 here, and we have to write out the multiples of 5. So you go through, let me move the paper down a little bit. You've got 5, 10, 15, blah, 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 blah. And then you've got 8, and you do all the 8s, the 16s, the 24s, blah, 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 blah. And eventually, you get to a point where you've got 40 and 40, and you circle those, and that's your lowest common multiple. Okay? Now then, that's fine, and you can do that, but obviously it takes time. Well, to me it takes time anyway. So I'll tell you an easy way of doing this. If you've got 2 numbers here, okay, and it can work with 3 numbers, but the easiest way, I mean, it's easiest when you've got the 2 numbers, okay? Most of the times when you're adding or subtracting, you'll only have to deal with 2 fractions. Maybe when you're comparing, you have to deal with 3, but normally one of them will be quite easy if you're dealing with 3. Anyway, never mind. Let's have a look at this to start with, okay? So you've got 5 here and 8 here. What number is a multiple of 5 and a multiple of 8? Well, I say we could do all of this stuff, like doing these lines out, or we can just multiply them together. We know that 5 times 8 equals 40, and we know that 8 times 5 equals 40. So we can make these into common denominators by just doing the 40 at the bottom. We know that 5 and 8 are into 40 because they both go together. Okay? So if you have two fractions and you're trying to compare them or you're trying to add them, rather than going through all of this process of trying to find this lowest common denominator, unless it's obvious, and sometimes it's easier and it's obvious, but unless it's obvious, just times the 2 of them together and you get a common denominator. Now what the important thing is, it might not be the lowest common denominator, but it is definitely a common denominator. Yeah? Okay, so in this case we do 5 times by 8 is 40, so we have to times that one by 8, we get 16 over 40 there. 8 times by 5 is 40, so we have to times that by 40, we get 35 over 40. And then we can compare them easily. This one is bigger than this one. Yeah? Okay? Let me just, I'll pause this a minute. I can't pause it very easily, but I'll pause this a minute, and then I'll just get another one that gives you a little bit of a difference look at it. Okay, so I warned you that if you do it that way, if you multiply them together, then you don't necessarily get the lowest common denominator. Just to give you an example of that, okay, say we've got here 1/4 and 5/10, okay? We have 1/4 and 5/10 here, okay? And we want to compare these two, or we want to add them together, or we want to subtract, whichever way you want to do it, okay? But you have to get a common denominator. Now the way I told you, just if you do the lowest common multiples out, yeah, you'll end up with, you'll eventually find that 20 is the lowest common denominator, okay? But if you do it my way, all you do is times this by this and this by this. So you get this will end up with being 40, and this will end up with being 40, okay? We times that by 10, so we times that by 10, okay? We times this by 4, so we times that by 4, okay? So here we've got 10 over 40 and 20 over 40, so we know that this one is bigger than this one, yeah? But if we were adding these together, for example, if our problem was to add these together, we'd end up with 30 out of 40. Okay, 10 plus 20. Now, the only thing you have to do here is to remember to simplify at the end. Okay, with these ones it's easy, we can just cross the zeros out and that makes the full. Okay, so this way, timesing each one, okay, is easy, but you might end up with a bigger equation than if you went, a bigger fraction than if you went through and did the lowest common multiple, which in this case would be 20. Yeah? I hope that's clear. Right? It's just, to me, it's a quick way of doing it. You can work this out for 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Oh, 20 is a multiple of 10, 20. Or you can just go quickly, 4 times 10 is 40, 10 times 4 is 40. It's up to you. Okay? I just wanted to show you a different way of doing it.